Arc Raiders is the talk of the town right now. Everyone just can't seem to get enough of it. It nailed every aspect that makes an extraction shooter, and then some. But even then, there are some games that also have gone above and beyond, just like Arc Raiders did. So, why is this game so popular? There's plenty of games that have nailed the extraction shooter formula, and I would say probably Tarkov could be one of them. It made the extraction shooter genre in and of itself. It is basically the first extraction shooter. Now, compared to Tarkov, Arc Raiders is a completely different game. But there are similar games to Arc Raiders that have detailed PvE interactions, such as Dark and Darker. Personally, one of my favorite games. I found it really fun. And I'm going to be comparing these games a lot. So if you don't really know about Dark and Darker, I'll give you the quick synopsis. It's a D&D extraction shooter game where you're playing as classes and you have to escape from the dungeon with as much loot as you can. And there's enemies and stuff, and then there's also players, and there's big bosses. And if you've played Arc Raiders, you can probably draw some similarities. But there's one thing that makes Arc Raiders so much different and so much better than Dark and Darker. And I'm going to be talking about these today. Because Arc Raiders has a fantastic base game, but what it does best is it nails the details. After playing through this game for a while, I've come across a few of these details, and I'm going to list off all of them. Now, I don't believe this is a definitive list, and this is like the only details that Arc Raider nails. There's so many, but here are just the ones that I think are the biggest and probably the most important. First, I just have to talk about that cutscene when you're loading in. Like, when I'm playing this game with my friends, we always comment on it how we're never getting sick of this cutscene. It's the same cutscene each time with literally no changes, and yet we never get sick of it. I mean, obviously there's a loading screen afterwards, so we're still gonna have to wait, but it's not annoying. And I think that's probably because of the atmosphere that it gives off. It really makes you feel like you are that person. You are going to go into this unknown, uncharted world, and you're going to go get some loot for the sake of Speranza, or however you say it. It makes you feel like you are that person. It makes you feel like you are the savior, and it makes you feel like you are that person in the tube. And it just enhances the immersiveness of this game, which is absolutely incredible with its absolutely amazing world building. Alright, the next little detail that I noticed was the HUD. It's very simplistic compared to, I feel like, a lot of extraction shooters that really feel like they're complicated for the sake of being complicated. And everything is there without it being an obstruction to you. I mean, this is obviously kind of like a need when making a game, but this game just does it so much better than other games that I've seen in this genre. Alright, now that I mentioned those things, which are kind of just the uncategorized options, let's talk about the enemies. Now, I have a lot of things that I think just make these enemies so amazing. First, they really are an innovation. If you haven't known, these enemies are actually trained and they learned how to fly the way that they do. And with the physics system and stuff, it really feels like they're real and in the world, and that they might belong there or have been placed there. Now, I also want to talk about the reaction when shooting them. As mentioned before, the physics system of them flying around makes it feel very realistic, and that also works with shooting them. When you shoot them with a high caliber rifle, it would make sense that they spin around, tumble, and maybe even some of their armor plating falls off. And that's exactly what happens. Now, I've been talking about the AI enemies, and earlier I believe I mentioned how they're very dangerous and they can very easily ruin a run. And why have this? Why have these enemies be like this? Now, I believe this is because of the way that the game is meant to be played. Unlike other extraction shooters, which are very much you only care about yourself, it's you versus everything else, this game very much has a friendliness about it. Not in the world, but between raiders. They all have a common enemy, and that is the Ark. And if you haven't seen videos of people just taking down the giant arcs, it's really satisfying. And that, I believe, is part of why we need to make these enemies dangerous. Not everything can just be reliant completely on player versus player interaction. Now, obviously, this is a main part of the game, but if too much effort is put towards player versus player interaction and not enough towards player versus environment interaction, then the game feels empty once it runs out of players. And eventually, these types of games will run out of players. Now, one more thing. I also want to talk about the sound design. And this game has a really nice sound design. Everything makes sense where it's placing, what it should sound like. And sometimes it gets a bit weird. Sometimes you feel like there's a drone right behind you when there's not. But in general, this game has some of the better sound design that I've heard. And it's not overly loud, which is, I think, a problem that a lot of games are having now, is they're just, especially games that are tactical and you need to hear these light sounds, they've just been pumping up the volume of these things. That way you're able to actually hear the small details. But this game does a good job where even playing at the default setting for volume isn't that bad. And you can still very easily make out when there's other raiders in the rooms next to you, and so on. Now, why yap about the details of Ark Raiders for 10 minutes? And I'm doing this because I think you can make a great game with a great fundamental basic plan and idea. But to propel the game to be even greater than it's originally planned, you have to focus on these details mentioned here. Obviously, not all of these are needed, like the cutscene is probably entirely optional, but you can have an amazing game. Take Dark and Darker with a really fun gameplay. But when you lack some of these basic details, the game is less fun. The overall general experience is taken away. And that's why I'm here today. If you're trying to make a game, don't just make a part of a game and make the basic gameplay and say that it's fun. Because though it may be fun, that's not enough. You need people to understand that this game was cared for and that all aspects of this game are great. And that is exactly what Ark Raiders was able to pull off. A game that's great in all aspects. And I feel like Embark Studios has so much going for it, and I'm really excited to see what they make of this game, to see what they make in the future, and to see what comes of the finals, because it's one of my favorite games, like one of my favorite competitive games of all time. It's really fun. Now, if you like this video or even just agreed with me, I would love if you could subscribe or just recommend this video to your friends. I'm still a small channel trying to grow. And if you've even seen this video and watched all the way through, thank you. Thank you so much. Guarantee you're probably like the only person that's seeing this right now. So to you out there, go buy this game. It's worth it.